Welcome to Mr. R's art class. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thumbs, subs, and ring that bell. So in this video here, we're going to make a sugar skull. We're going to go ahead and start with 20 different types of lines. We're going to use a reference or resource, combine those two ideas together, and make it our own on this final draft piece of paper. So this is my final draft. This is pretty close to being done. I would just need to ink this in and add color to it. So let me go ahead and help you get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to draw about 20 different types of lines. We're going to draw about 20 different types of lines. You could spread them out. You just kind of come up with a rough draft of what 20 different types of lines look like. So you could draw a circle, and you could repeat that circle and vary maybe the size of it. You could also make some a little bit bigger, move them around, and you could even draw some circles inside of the other circles if you'd like. So that's a circle, and you could vary the different size. It could be the same shape, but maybe vary the size around that type of line. You could also use a triangle, and you could also rotate some of these shapes here. So you could have a right side triangle or an upside down triangle together. So that could be a type of line. So maybe start with some basic shapes, some shapes that you might be used to. You could also have some squares here. And you could have some of these squares maybe overlapping. So you could have a square there in the front and a different square behind it. You could also put squares inside of each other. So not only are they overlapping, but now you have squares that are inside of each other. You could have some more abstract shapes, so maybe like a star here. All right, and then you could even have some smaller stars next to it. You could also use some wavy lines. That could be a type of line. Have a thinner line next to it. You could also use that same line and maybe put some smaller waves inside of it too. So you could turn some pretty basic lines into some more complex lines as well. You can have that same shape next to each other using the same technique. You could also start with a regular line that goes straight up and down. You could change the width of the line, so you could have a thinner line, a wider line, and create a pattern. You could also change the direction of that line. Right, so we talked about rotating a type of line. You could even change the angle of that line. So we have some lines here that go vertical, so these lines that go straight up and down, or these lines that go from left to right. But you could also change the angle here, so we could have a diagonal line. You could have a diagonal line that's a little bit wider. And then you could also create a pattern by adding a thinner line back to that. You could have some maybe organic shapes, so maybe a water drop, maybe an upside down water drop, and then a right side water drop. You could maybe have some wavy lines here. That could be a different type of line that you use. And you can have maybe a smaller wave inside of that, or in front of that. You could probably flip your paper and put a wave upside down. And see what that turns into. And a lot of these aren't filled in yet, so you could have some of these shapes and you could have this shape not filled in. You could probably fill this shape in, have that shape not filled in. The next shape would be filled in. Right, so think about how you could start with some really basic lines, then think about how some of those lines could turn into geometric shapes, some abstract shapes here like these stars here, some organic shapes like these water drops. So once you have about 20 different types of lines drawn on a regular sheet of paper, you could grab one of those references or resources on the back table of these sugar skulls, and we could use the outline or the design of those references or resources on the back table, and we could use the lines that we came up with and substitute the lines that we came up with the designs that already exist inside of these references or resources. So you could try to do a grid transfer of one of these references or resources, or begin to challenge yourself. Start trying to draw some of these items on your own without tracing. And again, when you are trying to draw something, you're looking for some of these hints, some of these clues. So right here on this left side of the head, the cheekbone kind of comes out a bit, but it doesn't go past the side of the skull. So I'm just replicating the outline of these sugar skulls here. I'm not replicating any of the details that are inside of this skull. I'm just replicating the outline of this skull here. And it's okay if you make a mistake, just try to draw lightly in case you do make a mistake, and so you could erase. And if you do make a mistake, you could erase and you won't see those lines there. So once you feel comfortable with your design, you can make that a little bit darker or hold off until everything's finalized and we can come over with a permanent marker. But for now, I'm still replicating, I'm still transferring some of these designs here, and you could change the outline of the designs. So you could grab your line samples and the reference or resource and think about how you could maybe put some of these designs that you came up with on your line samples and combine it with the ideas that already existed on the reference or resource. So maybe instead of these petals around the eyes, maybe I could use these triangles here. Right, so think about how you can make this sugar skull your own by using some of the line samples that you came up with. You could combine some of these ideas, you could combine some of these different types of lines here. Try to make everything symmetrical on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side. So if I have this design here on the left-hand side, I should also have this design here on the right-hand side. You could substitute some of these flowers. Maybe you still want to use a flower, but maybe come out with your own flower. So these are lilies. You could replace them with maybe a rose flower if you'd like. And you have some curved lines below the eyes. So maybe you could use this type of line here instead. Or even looking at your line samples, there's a star here, and maybe substituting these flowers with the stars that you have for your line samples. So think about how you could turn these line samples and combine it with the reference or resource that we have on the back table and turn these sugar skulls into something of your own. So you're using repetition, you're repeating some of these lines to create patterns. So here's everything almost all drawn in for my final draft. Make sure that when you're drawing something on the left hand side that you're also drawing it on the right hand side. So if you had this imaginary line that goes straight down the middle of your sugar skull, and if I was to fold this in half, everything on the left hand side would fold over and match up with everything on the right hand side. So try to draw everything symmetrical or the same on the left hand side as on the right hand side. The last thing I would need to do is go over this with a marker and consider adding some color to this to make it stand out. If you have any questions or need any help, go ahead and let me know. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And feel free to watch any of the other related videos.